Assalamu alaikum students, hope you all will be fine. Today our topic is construction of histogram. Like bar graph and pie graph, histogram is similar to bar graph but it is constructed for frequency table. So in bar graph frequencies are shown in horizontal x-axis and the bars also showing in horizontal x-axis. So to draw the histogram, draw x-axis and y-axis. This is x-axis and this is y-axis. Make class boundaries of classes along x-axis. So we make class boundaries on x-axis and frequency on y-axis. Draw a bar for each class so that the height of the bar drawn for each class equal to the frequency of the class. Suppose in this histogram we have class boundaries 39.5, 49.5, 59.5, 69.5, 79.5, 89.5 and 99.5, and these are the frequencies, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and 15. For example, we have a table, frequency table, which have distance traveled in kilometer and number of persons. If we make a table distance traveled in kilometer and class boundaries frequency. So distance is 1 to 8 and frequency 15, which is given in the question. We make class boundaries. For making class boundaries, we subtract 0.5 from the first value and add 0.5 to the last value. So we get 0.5 to 8.5. Similarly, 8.5 to 16.5, 16.5 to 24.5, 24.5 to 32.5 and 32.5 to 40.5. So in x-axis we mark class boundaries and in y-axis we mark frequency. So the frequency start from 0 to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 and 15. And the class boundaries, which are 0.5, which is 0.5, 8.5, 16.5, 24.5, 32.5 and 40.5. The first class boundary is 0.5 to 8.5 and the frequency is 15. We mark 15 and draw a bar. Next class boundary is 8.5 to 16.5 and the frequency is 12. We mark 12 and then draw a bar. The next is 16.5 to 24.5 and the frequency is 7. So we mark 7 and draw a bar. The next is 24.5 to 32.5 and the frequency is 4. We make a bar. And then last is 32.5 to 40.5 and the frequency is 2. So we mark 2 and then draw a bar. So this is a histogram which shows the frequency and class boundaries by the bar. Exercise 12.1, question number 6. Construct a histogram for each of the frequency table in question number 1 to 5. So we construct histogram by using question number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, which have a frequency table. So question number 1, we have a frequency distribution table which have class intervals, class boundaries, tally mark and frequency. For construct a histogram, firstly we draw a x-axis and y-axis. Mark class boundaries along x-axis and frequency along y-axis. So class boundary which have 34.5, 44.5 and then 54.5, 64.5, 74.5, 84.5, 94.5 and 104.5. We make frequency in the sequence by the difference of 2. So start from 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 and 14. It means एक्स एक्सिस की जो लाइन होगी इस पर हम क्लास बाउंड्रीज़ को लिखेंगे और जो हमारे पास वाई एक्सिस की लाइन होगी इस पर हम फ्रीक्वेंसी को लिखेंगे. हमने फ्रीक्वेंसी को एक सीक्वेंस के साथ 2 के डिफरेंस से यहाँ पर लिखा, और क्लास बाउंड्रीज जो हमारे पास थी वो स्टार्ट हो रही थी 34.5 से 44.5, देन 44.5 टू 54.5। हमने क्लास बाउंड्रीज को यहाँ पर लिख दिया। देन उसके बाद हमने अकॉर्डिंग टू फ्रीक्वेंसी बार को ड्रॉ करना शुरू करना है। द फर्स्ट फ्रीक्वेंसी वी हैव 3, so we mark 3 and then draw a bar. The next is 5, which is from 44.5 to 54.5, so 44.5 to 54.5 we mark frequency which is 5 in between 6 and 4, and we draw a bar. Then 54.5 to 64.5 we have 8, so we mark on 8 and then draw a bar. The next is 9, which is in between 8 and 10, so we mark on 9 and then draw a bar. Next is 6, we mark on 6 and then draw a bar according to our class boundaries. We see the class boundaries and frequencies. The next is 5, we mark 5 which is in between 6 and 4, and see the class boundary which is 84.5 to 94.5 and draw a bar. The last is from 94.5 to 104.5 which is 4, so we mark 4 and draw a bar. So this is a histogram. The next question, we have frequency distribution table, class intervals and class boundaries. So firstly we draw x-axis and y-axis. x-axis और y-axis हमने ड्रॉ कर लिए। उसके बाद हम क्लास बाउंड्रीज को x-axis पर लिखेंगे और फ्रीक्वेंसी को y-axis पर लिखेंगे। उसके बाद हमने क्लास बाउंड्रीज से फ्रीक्वेंसी को देखते हुए बार को ड्रॉ करना है। 44.5 से 54.5 तक हमारी फ्रीक्वेंसी 4 है। हमारी क्लास बाउंड्री जो है वो ये है। यहाँ से हम फ्रीक्वेंसी को मार्क करेंगे और बार को ड्रॉ कर देंगे। द नेक्स्ट वी हैव 54.5 to 64.5. द फ्रीक्वेंसी इज 7, so we mark on 7 which is in between 6 and 8 and then draw a bar. Next is 4, so we mark 4 and then draw a bar. Next is 7, we mark 7 and then draw a bar. The next is 6, we mark on 6, see the frequencies and mark on 6 and then draw a bar. The next is 10, we mark on 10 and draw a bar. The next is 5, so 5 is in between 6 and 4, we draw a bar, and the next is 0, so there is no bar. Next is 3, so we have 3 frequency which is in between 2 and 4, and the next is 2, we mark on 2 and draw a bar. The next is 1, we mark 1 which is in between 0 and 2 and then draw a bar. The last is 1, so we mark a frequency which is in between 0 and 1 and draw a bar. Similarly, in the next question we have a frequency distribution table, class intervals, class boundaries, tally mark and frequency. Firstly we draw x-axis and y-axis. Mark class boundaries along x-axis and frequencies along y-axis. फिर से हम 2 के डिफरेंस से यहाँ पर फ्रीक्वेंसीज़ को मार्क करेंगे, और जो हमारे पास क्लास बाउंड्रीज़ हैं, हमारी क्लास बाउंड्रीज स्टार्ट हो रही हैं 39.5 से। सो हम स्टार्ट करेंगे 39.5 एंड देन 44.5, 49.5, 54.5, 59.5, 64.5, 69.5, 74.5, 79.5, 84.5, 89.5, then 94.5, 99.5. So the first frequency is 1. We mark 1 and draw a bar. The next is also 1, so we draw a bar. The third is also 1, so we draw a bar. which have frequency 1. The next is 0, so there is no bar here. The next is 3, so we mark 3 which is in between 2 and 4. And the next is also 3 which is in between 2 and 4. Then we draw a bar. The next is 4, so we mark 4 and then draw a bar. The next is 11, we mark 11 and then draw a bar. The next frequency we have 8, so we mark 8 and then draw a bar. उससे अगली फ्रीक्वेंसी हमारे पास 4 है, हम यहाँ से 4 को मार्क करेंगे और बार ड्रॉ कर देंगे. अगली फ्रीक्वेंसी भी हमारे पास 4 है, यहाँ से हम 4 को मार्क करेंगे और बार ड्रॉ करेंगे. द लास्ट इज़ 1, so we mark 1 and draw a bar. So this is our histogram. Okay students, Allah Hafiz.